2, 1. Here we are. Woo! Welcome back to the podcast.
Started on 2 that time.
I think it did, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did give us the normal countdown to 1.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back.
Yeah. Thank you, people, for listening. We're
Yeah.
still here.
Yeah, that's very surprising that even a single person tuned in to.
We were just looking at our YouTube channel, reflecting on the, handful of views that we have, and we were pleasantly surprised. Yeah, the massive success of just a few people listening.
It's going straight to our heads.
Yeah, it's going to our heads already.
5 people in, and we're on a power trip. Seeing if we can reaching out to Joe Rogan, see if we can get him on the show.
Yeah, I don't know. He might not be big enough for us at this point.
That's true. Yeah, we'll have to set our sights a little bigger.
Yeah.
You think Elon's free this week?
Yeah, that's right. Elon, maybe we can see if he'd like to invest in our podcast.
Yeah, we're going to need a minimum of $1 trillion. Minimum. So
I need at least 3 Teslas.
Yeah. So if anyone's out there listening and wants to sponsor this show, just give us a holler.
Yeah, give us some inspiring stuff. Money's inspiring.
Talk to our agents. Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Money is inspiring, but I think you should go first, since I tend to most times. I want to hear what.
Okay. Do you always go first? I don't know. Maybe we should keep a tally of that.
Yeah.
Somebody listen back through all of our episodes and write that down and send it to us.
Yeah, we're on episode 10 now, so I think I'm at least like 7 for 10.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll go first. All right. Well, let's see. Okay. Yeah. What's inspiring for me this week? I have actually been inspired by this for a very long time, but I decided to finally talk about it. So I'm bringing it out of the secret Brandon closet. I really think that cartography and map making, is super inspiring. I mean, I think we've kind of lost the art of cartography today, because we have Google Maps and we have satellites, and nobody has to be a cartographer anymore.
True.
But I love looking at maps. I love old maps, ancient maps, looking at especially when you start getting into old archaeology and you kind of look at how people used to view the world. And you look at old maps of oh man, people used to think that island was over there and it's not. And
is this in any relation to Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock?
I definitely enjoy. I'm not going to necessarily go into that, but I definitely enjoy how they go through older maps and the Perry Reese map and all other stuff like that is super interesting. Yeah. But even outside of the work that they do with their Netflix show, now that we've moved away from the Lord of the Rings show, we have to move on to a new show, by the way. So now it's the Ancient Archaeology or the Ancient Apocalypse show. But no, I mean, they definitely look at some fun maps in that one. But, there's other stuff that you can pull up on the ancient world where they have maps. And it's pretty interesting how dependent people are on maps. I mean, even today, we know all of the planet. I feel like we're almost more dependent on maps today than we ever have been. Yeah. Even though we have so much knowledge, it's we're so we don't really remember where things are,
Yeah.
And so we need to constantly look at maps. I mean, I don't know about other people, but I pull up my Google Maps every other day. I mean, it's like one of my regular apps on my phone that I pull up and look at. And when you think about it, that's not just a digital thing. That's literally like a map. Imagine if that was a physical map that I had to pull out of the drawer and unfold it, spread across the paper on a table, and chart
fun,
my.
That's for sure.
I know it would actually be a lot more fun.
It'd
make me feel like a sea captain. I know, right? It's what if you had to look at that and it's oh, okay, this is where that one coffee shop is. It's right here. Now how do I know what its Google reviews are?
Only there was a map for that.
Only there was another piece of paper that, but I mean, we used to have that stuff too. We'd have books that would have business reviews and things in there.
Well, if you think about okay, so with the Perry Reese map and stuff, it's if you think about what's on there, it's or any map, well, most maps, it's it's always what's relevant is depicting the place, so it might be a tiger in India or something, and that was what stood out to them was 8 big scary animals, or it's it might show gold in one area of West Africa, and that was where the gold mining was, and that was their industry, or whatever it is, or in San Francisco, it might have shown like gold or something, if someone was making a map and one of those more like artistic maps, you would have actually seen things that might have been relevant to the area in them, And so
Yeah.
you look at the Tolkien map with like Smog and the Lonely Island, or or not Lonely Island.
Lonely Mountain.
Yeah, thank you.
There
I
you
don't know
go.
why I was thinking like the band, but
There's the Misty Mountains. Yeah, the Lonely Mountain. Yeah.
huh. Anyway, yeah. But you see like a dragon there, and because it's the defining feature of the area. So it's like, who knows? Maybe a modern map would have, the business with like a little star review underneath.
Yeah, I know, right? That's pretty funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, so you have brought up a good point there, talking about fantasy maps. Aside from just the real world maps, I don't know. I mean, I
You're
know
getting
that
a little
you've
quieter
you've.
again too.
Oh yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm holding my microphone too low. I
Nice.
know that you've done some stuff making your own maps, which is really fun. And earlier this year, I found a program online. Which what was that program called? I can't remember.
Incarnate.
Yes, thank you. Oh, thank you for
Mm-hmm.
remembering that.
It's the first
And
time
I
I've
got
ever
into my
remembered
own
something
little. I
ever.
got into my own little map making stuff, but it's super fun to make a map, especially for like a fantasy creation or your novels or writing or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because now you're creating your own world.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the fun things, whether it's a fantasy thing or it's the real world map, because you're literally viewing like this is the land, the sea, the place. This is like the world of existence where people are living and everything's happening.
You're
And it
almost
gives
breathing
you
some life into it,
yeah, it
into the
breathes
work.
life into it. It takes you out of that tunnel vision of like, this is my little sphere of 10 miles and I never leave this radius. So
Yeah.
yeah, I find maps really inspiring by that. And, old maps, new maps, all those things. But I think the question I have, based on the inspiration of the maps, is how well do you think you would be able to do your
Oh,
daily
jeez.
tasks if you had no maps whatsoever? You
Mm.
couldn't pull out a paper map. You couldn't pull out your Google Maps. Like, how long would you function? How well would that work for you? What would happen?
It's funny because like I was already thinking about this a little bit as you were saying maps and like local maps and stuff. But I think I'd adapt pretty fast, to be honest, because I already do stuff where like I specifically will, like, if I have time, try to like go to a place using a route I haven't used before, and it's almost like a little mini Google survey, Google Map survey
Yeah.
car, where it's like I turn into a neighborhood. I'm like, nope, that's a dead end. Then I
Yeah.
have to like turn back around. I did that just yesterday in the Standpoint when I was there. We were like leaving the fairgrounds, and it was like took 3 or 4 wrong turns before I found like the little highway that connected everything together. And I was like, oh, okay. So now if I ever went back through that area, like I'd be able to just go no problem. But I do think like without maps, people would just spend a lot more time. Well, it probably depends on personality type a little bit, but I'm guessing like some people would be much more like adherent to maps and like, okay, I need to know exactly where I'm going. I don't want any like missteps. I need to like, chart it out like you were saying. Whereas other people would be like much more inclined to just like um let the mystery of it, the not complete solvedness of it kind of like guide them a little bit and just lead them to happy little surprises and be like, oh, I didn't know there's a coffee shop down here, or like um oh you know I just went this new way and it was like 10 minutes faster than how I was trying to get before, or whatever. So you'd kind of like have pleasant little discoveries like that. So I think it just depends probably on personality type. And
That's a
yeah.
that's an interesting thought. Yeah, because if you have a map, you know what to expect, which is
Mm-hmm.
more efficient. But is it truly like better all the way around? Do you think that
Mm-hmm.
if we took away maps from people for just like the everyday activities, maybe not if you were like driving across the country or whatever, but like
Yeah.
just everyday driving, if we took away all the maps and everything for people, do you think people would be more stressed or less stressed?
Probably more stressed.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to say if you've already had a map and then get it taken away. I think that would cause a
That's
lot of
true.
anxiety.
Yeah.
If you had never had
If
them,
you'd never had it, yeah.
I don't know. I just think people don't like change. So any
Yeah.
change is what causes stress.
No, I
So
agree with you. Yeah, if we took the maps away from people, then people would
mhm.
be up in arms, because we're so dependent on them today. But if people
Yeah.
had never had maps to begin with, because I wonder if your sense of time would change, like, okay,
Mm.
we're going to go up to this place. It's supposed to be like an hour away. Somebody kind of described to me how to get there, but we might
Yeah.
have to stop and ask people for more directions on the way. And we'll
Yeah.
probably go the wrong road and maybe have to turn around a little bit. Like, you expect it to take longer
Yeah.
and you expect it to be a little bit of an adventure.
Yeah.
And so I almost wonder if that would like change the expectations. And then if it's more difficult, you're not as stressed out about that. And then if you find that, oh, surprise little coffee shop, this place was so cool. I didn't know this was here. Wow, I love this place.
Yeah.
Then you have like just changes the expectations. I
Hmm.
think that would
Yeah.
be
You'd
interesting.
probably, I imagine, yeah, like I think you touched on a good point where like you would stop and ask for directions. I think it would be much more um there'd be a much more personal aspect to direction and to finding your way. So you would probably talk to a lot more people. You'd be like, "Oh, have you been up to, Priest River, like from Coeur d'Alene? Have you been up there? Like, how do you get there?" You'd have to like kind of pick their brain almost, and it would be more of like a crowdsourced uh, type solution where and then you'd be like, "Okay, well, what were the roads like? Is it, you'd have to try to piece together more things from more people, I would think, than just, is there any construction there, instead of the map telling you that there's construction or whatever. How long does it generally take? All these questions that would pop up, and you'd try to get your best estimate. But I imagine you'd have to be looser with time as well. And, if you're going to go meet someone an hour away or something, you'd have to be like, well, I'll just be there this afternoon instead of I'll be there at
Yeah.
3:57 or,
Yeah.
or not at all. I don't know.
I know, like, I get text messages from people these days where they'll literally text me saying, the ETA on Google Maps is 10 minutes, so hopefully I'll be there then, or
Yeah.
it's like, oh, we don't even know how long it takes to go from one place to another unless we check our maps and it gives us the
Yeah.
estimated time,
Yeah.
yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah. One
Yeah.
question I was going to ask you was, how much do you think the copy of that Perry Reese map that guy got costs? Just the
Oh
copy.
gosh, just a copy of it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's something that's like consumer. Like, I would imagine that's something that doesn't have a copyright law on it, and it could
Yeah, that's
just be
true.
something that you could like buy the digital image of it for $5 online,
Get
some
it printed out or
archive
something.
website, and then you just be paying for the printout, like canvas fees or whatever. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Like, if you like, yeah, I don't know how somebody could copyright that and try to rack up a price on it. I would imagine that's something that you could hopefully just
Yeah.
get for a lower cost,
Or someone could, yeah.
because
Or maybe there's only one person making them though, and then that's why they charge an arm and a leg. I don't know.
yeah, which, I mean, if you got a copy that wasn't just like a digital printout copy, if it was like on genuine leather and like somebody like hand wrote it, then I'm sure that would be like hundreds of dollars.
Someone
But
named Paul Carr Sr.
somebody, oh yeah, ooh, I could see that business going on. Yeah,
Yeah. I saw someone
ooh,
make a sick Lord of the Rings map out of leather. They like dyed it
ooh,
all the different colors and
ooh.
took them like 1,000 hours, but
Oh wow, ooh, that's cool though.
it was super sick.
Yeah, so if anybody listening is thinking about good birthday presents, maybe ancient
or,
maps or
or
something
has
like
a
that.
thousand
So
hours to burn.
yeah,
Let us
so
know.
yeah, all right. If I get that for Christmas, we'll know that my wife is listening. I don't think she's listening.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So maps.
Yeah, yeah. Let's
Yeah. No,
the
I
map to
think
the
that
heart.
the map. I think that it's fascinating how advanced we are with our maps today. And another question I wanted to ask on the idea of maps, throughout history, if you just look at older maps, you see how inaccurate they were. Oh, this is how people imagined things were back then. Or in the mythology mindset, you could be, oh, or maybe that's how the world was back then. Maybe the world has changed, and that's kind of interesting. So it's almost a
Well, that's
historical document,
controversial.
right? Yeah, I know that's controversial. So that's kind of the idea that like, maybe there was, things were in different places.
Yeah.
But the question I have today is like, do you feel like the maps today are they still trustworthy, or do you feel like they could actually be inaccurate, like even Google Maps, or even if you bought like a hard copy map of the world, do you feel like even the proportions of different places or where stuff is, do you think that they still have a lot of inaccuracies, or do you feel like they're absolutely laser focus exactly how the world is?
I think they're pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I have thought that it's weird that, because the idea of like a map or an image is like it's an abstract idea,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't live in the abstract, you live in the physical, so it's like the fact that those two things match up and are the same like isn't the case, but you can use the concept to like functionally go about your day. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's like weird because it could just be that they're all wrong and you've just been going about your life and like they're just completely off. But I mean, the fact that you're able to punch in your address and get there leads me to believe that they're pretty reasonable and
Yeah.
pretty up there. I think with like satellite imaging too and stuff, it's like it's pretty hard to go wrong with that. And
Yeah.
um, actually, this leads me to one of my next thoughts I had on it. But before I say that, the other thing too is actually on traditional like flat maps and stuff, the
Mm-hmm.
proportions actually are wrong
Yeah.
because obviously it's a globe, not flat. So I
Yeah.
think like Africa is shown as like way smaller than it normally is, I believe. Um,
Yeah, I think that Africa is supposed to be smaller.
I think it's supposed to be
And
bigger.
oh, really?
I don't know.
Like
Yeah.
I think in real life it's bigger, but on the map it looks smaller than it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I've always been tripped out by this. I'm looking at Google Maps on my computer right now, and
Hmm.
if anybody wants to see this, totally Google it and look. But no joke, if you look at Greenland
Hmm.
and you just compare the size of Greenland to South America, it's like it looks like it's the same landmass.
Huh.
I mean, it just looks like they could be almost the same size. And that always
Yeah.
trips me out. And I always look at that and I think, is that really how big Greenland is? Like, is that is that proportionate? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then there's that giant chunk of Canada that's up there by Greenland, which I don't know if that's actually Canada or if that's Greenland, but
Yeah. So I think
it's
this is like
like,
the weird effect of the globe because I just typed it in and South
yeah.
America is 8.2 times larger than Greenland.
Okay, yeah, see? But on Google Maps, it looks the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So there
crazy.
some weird distortion. I'm actually looking at a picture of it and it's like Greenland's this tiny little like chunk inside South America.
Oh wow. That's
So
interesting.
yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, you can't trust what you see, people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's everyone kind of like takes it for granted and has that image of like a world map burned in their mind.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, to go with my other thought that I had about the satellite mapping is so there's this technique for 3D modeling where if you want to model terrain, you can
Hmm.
actually use Google Earth and use all their satellite data um, for the Earth basically, and you can get like I forget what the scale was, but it's basically like you can get terrain data for your 3D model up to like
Oh.
I think within like 10 feet of accuracy. Like
Whoa.
yeah, it's like super crazy. And so basically you just import like different sections from Google Earth. It already has like all the height data in it. It has like a bunch of different like metrics for data. And so you actually just import that into your 3D model and it'll build the space in 3D and then you can retexture it or put like different stuff on it. But
That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, you can actually even do it with cities and stuff too. So it'll like, you just pick an area in, I don't know, Vancouver, Canada in a city and it'll like every building will just be imported and made into a 3D model from your like flat Google Earth image. And
Whoa,
so
that's pretty cool.
yeah,
Wow.
so there's definitely some accurate mapping that's gone on of like the whole world just through like satellites, and so like all that data is just kind of floating out there. You just have to, you can basically harness it if you want, but yeah, I think they use, I forget what they use exactly. It might be lidar or some sort of like, yeah, I think some sort of lidar maybe from satellite to get all the height data and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, and the other thing too, which is cool, is like all the lidar stuff that they're doing with the South America and finding those ancient cities and stuff.
Yeah,
It's like that's a form of mapping,
it's true.
where you're like mapping under the ground.
Yeah, which
Kind of
actually reminds me, how much of the ocean has been mapped now that I'm thinking about that? How much
last I heard it was like 2% or something, or
the
6%.
ocean is
Yeah, because
explored? Okay, I'm seeing
yeah,
5%. Only 5% has been explored and charted by humans. Wow.
yeah, that's almost nothing.
That's insane. Yeah.
Huh. You're
Gosh.
never gonna find out Atlantis if you don't get the other 95% of that bad
That's
boy.
right. Come on, people. I want 95%. I want that.
Yeah, I thought that would be like the sickest job to be like I don't know, like a submarine pilot, or I mean, that's not how they map them, but it would be fun to be like a submarine pilot doing mapping and just like go through there and just, I don't know, spend your day in like a little metal tube and in the dark, just go around and bing, bing,
Yeah.
sonar everything.
Looking for the Leviathan.
Or it's looking for me. But yeah, no, I mean,
Uh,
it's to go back a little earlier. It was like, imagine being like Lewis and Clark, and you have to like map your whole journey, like
yeah.
through these huge forests and hills, and like I don't even know what the process of that is, but
Yeah. I know. I think about that sometimes. Like if I was on a long drive for like an hour going through the
mm-hmm.
country, and it's like, okay, what if I had to map everything that I see within sight?
Yeah,
Okay, there was like a bunch of trees over here. I'm not sure how to write that proportionally, but like it was kind of this little circle,
yeah,
and there was like a little river, and it kind of went like that. I don't, it's like, how do you just got to look at it, and there's no way it's going to be perfectly accurate, but you have to try to display some level of, you know,
yeah,
comparable proportions of what things were,
yeah, because you
It's,
kind of need some sort of measurement as well to like make sure you're even generally on scale. And I think I'm not sure exactly how like Magellan or whatever map things or whatnot, but I imagine there's some sort of like maybe they knew their speed, and so they used like that as scale for like how many dashes do I draw on my map going to the left, to the west or
yeah,
whatever. So you would have to like know your direction, probably your speed, and maybe I guess maybe they eyeballed some stuff like, I don't know, there's a hill about 3 miles that way, and so you just like draw it 3 miles on your map, I guess. But
yeah,
I'm sure it's probably more scientific than that.
yeah.
This is just the layman's wild guessing.
Anyway, well, people, I hope that next time you pick up your Google Maps to look at it, you feel inspired. There it is. That's the moral of the story.
Every time.
Yeah. All right, dude. What inspires you?
Money, being filthy rich, throwing money all over the place, bathing in money, um, eating money. No,
eating it. I got a few pennies. I'll give them to you.
Yeah, there you go.
Choking
Fiber.
hazard. Yeah.
Build up my gut flora with that thing, man. People want
Talk about
probiotics for like
bacteria.
$1. Yeah. But no, just generally speaking, kind of how. So my first thought with money was how there's so much of it, and it's like, people, like some people obviously have very little of it, but there is a huge amount out in the world, and it's like really like it seems so hard to get, but at the same time it's like thrown away constantly. It's
Mm,
almost like a riddle. It's like, like what is there abundance of but nobody has enough of? It's like money.
yeah.
um because I see, like, maybe uh if I need to get the let's see, what's the keyword to get the NSA to tune out, turn away from the podcast. But as far as wasted money, the government, uh, it's like,
Pretty sure they
dude,
just shovel it into the fire. I'm pretty
pretty
sure.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, the amount of waste that happens, and like, just keeping staff around just to like fill quotas, like expenses no problem, type stuff. Like even big corporations, it happens where it's like, you have a department and they have to like spend their whole budget by the end of the year, or else they won't get like the same budget next year, so it's like you just buy a bunch of like stupid stuff just so you can keep your budget the same for the next year, or increase it by asking for more money. Because they're like, well, we went through our whole budget. It's like, well, no, you actually just bought like, a nice company dinner, and 1,000 new, laser printers for your office that you actually didn't even need,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. So, it's just like there's so much money like that going around and going to waste. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what waste is. You can come up with your own moral standard on that, but it's like, but then you see people who it's like they just can't get enough money. And they're just like always struggling, or always needing more money and stuff. But
Mm,
it's just, while there's so much around to have people that like can't get enough, it's like such a weird paradox.
yeah.
And so for me, it inspires me because it's like I see how much is wasted, and I'm like, even if I just get 1% of all that wasted money or something, like find some way to divert some of that waste to me, then I'm like, man, I'd be set for life.
I know
So
it's insane how close you can have, a person with insane riches, and then right next door, or across town, whatever, you have somebody with absolutely nothing.
yeah,
It really is staggering the degrees at which there can be more money than people know what to do with, and
yeah.
hopelessly like poor kind of situations.
That's why everyone moved
Yeah.
out of California, because all the rich people had homeless people walk in their front yards.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, and so I kind of was thinking about that a little bit, and just, you know, like the fact that like there is so much to go around really is like a cool motivator for like wondering if you can make it in the world, I guess, financially. Because I always wonder about that. It's like, you have this nagging thought, like, is there enough money left for me, or like that I could make? Is everybody done spending money? And bought all the things they want, and now I'm left out in the to dry or whatever. But um, it's cool just seeing different. So knowing that, it's like, wow, there's probably so many avenues where like there's still opportunity to make money, or to support yourself. And I think the cool thing with like supporting yourself and getting money for stuff, and this is kind of like a shift in my thinking a little bit, but is basically because I never want to be greedy. Like that's my one of my big drivers. And so like I never want to ask for a lot of money, or whatnot. But um one thing that kind of helped me with that, overcoming that, was basically seeing money as like a way to keep people responsible, I guess. If I don't know, I'm not sure exactly how to phrase it, but like
Like if you have a lot of money, you have to be responsible, or if you don't, then you have to be responsible to get money. I don't know, or
both,
maybe
yeah,
both. Yeah.
actually. But kind of the main, I think those are actually two really good examples of that. I think what I'm kind of thinking of, or what sparked that idea in my mind, was like, have you ever like tried to do something for somebody, and they're like, you're like, oh, I'll help you move or something, and it's like, or they want help doing something, and then you're like, yeah, I'll help you, and then it's like becomes this big hassle where they never like really follow through on it, or it's like this, It's like, yeah, like, oh, I'm not doing it this week, I'm actually doing it next week or whatever. And it becomes like you're just trying to help them, but then it becomes like this big process where
Yeah, it
it's like
wasn't as simple as you thought.
yeah,
Yeah.
but then you throw money into the mix, and all of a sudden it's like everybody's like super on it and like, well, I'm paying you, so like I'm gonna make this happen. It's like it somehow like brings out like a more serious side of people because there's like an actual cost to it or something.
It's
Or
true. Yeah, like if you have a project that's just like your own personal project,
mm-hmm.
then you might come to it with a certain level of motivation. But then if you're going to make money and that's like your job project,
Yeah,
then you might come to it with a whole new enthusiasm. Like, okay, I've got to make this professional because I'm
yeah,
getting paid for this. So I got to do it really good.
yeah. There's like, yeah, you step up your game almost. Or if someone's like, just wants you to like do something for them, I don't know. It's like, hey, can you write this thing for me? It's like both people might kind of slack off on like, getting it done or, being as involved as they need to be. But then as soon as someone's like, hey, can I pay you to write this article for me or something? You're both like, yeah, okay, when do you need it done? Like, all right, like send me the money. And like the person's, checking your work because they want to make sure they got their value out of their money and stuff like that. And it's like there's a whole new level of accountability that gets added to the thing, when you throw money in the mix. So
Yeah, I say this a lot when I give people advice about their health, because I
mm,
am so deep in the health world. There's all kinds of things that people ask me, and it's funny how I'll give somebody advice. I'll tell them, you wouldn't have as much joint pain if you stretched more often. And they'll be
mm-hmm.
like, yeah, that's true. That sounds right. And then it's like, that was just my freebie advice to a random person. And then next time I see them, it's like, yeah, have you been stretching more? And they're like, no. But but then if somebody pays me $100 and it's like,
mm-hmm.
okay, here's $100. What's your advice? Okay, man, listen to me. You
It's gonna blow your
need
mind.
to you need to stretch more. Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, you're right. I know. Oh, okay. Okay, I'm gonna do it. It's gonna happen. And then I
Yeah.
see them a week later. It's like, have you been stretching more? Yes, I have been stretching every single day. They're super serious about it. And it's like, it's almost like this emotional, impactful thing. What's the difference?
Mm-hmm.
It's just because you paid me to tell you that. Like a
Yeah.
lot of the stuff, honestly, a lot of the stuff I tell people in my office is like stuff that you could probably Google search or read a book, or like, it's probably just some, exercise more. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, it's pretty basic stuff. But I mean, the same thing with a lot of other things. Oh, why do I have so many money problems? Because you don't keep a budget. Why am I overweight? Because you eat a lot of sugar. I mean, it's like there's a lot of things in life that it's like we know how to do that, but we don't do
Mm-hmm.
anything about it because discipline and motivation really comes when you're paying money
Yeah.
to have somebody give you that advice.
Or some
You're
kind of
basically,
cost. Yeah.
yeah, it's like if there's like a financial cost that
Yeah.
makes you do something, you get it done. You're motivated for it.
Yeah. And that's why like I would use the word cost over even just money, because like, you can be motivated by social costs or emotional costs, like as well. So it's like when I saying money, I'm more meaning like even just value or like, that kind of thing. Cause right, all money is just a representation of value. It's like anything could be used as money, like toilet paper could in 2021.
That's I know toilet
Uh,
paper was like on the black market for a while.
yeah, I wish I had a funny story or like anecdote of someone that tried to pay me in toilet paper during that time for a job, but no
Uh,
such luck.
Actually, I take that back. Toilet paper wasn't on the black market; it was on the white market. If you got toilet paper on the black market, that was used toilet paper, or maybe on the brown market. Anyway,
Yeah. Uh,
you
so
know,
yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to ask you, do you feel like just a general idea about money? Do you feel like money changes people a lot? Like
Mm,
whether a person, we were talking earlier about the idea of like, oh, what if we changed maps? What if we like took maps away from everybody? Everybody would stress out and like, oh, how can I live my life without this map? It's like
yeah.
if you give somebody a ton of money, do you think, how much risk is there that that person is going to change who they are as a person because they suddenly got $10 million in their back pocket?
Yeah. Um, I've actually had this thought for a while, and I heard someone on a podcast, someone who has over $1 billion, say it, and it was like the same thing I thought, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna say it his way because he's more eloquent." But um, basically, the idea is that like money just enhances who you already are as a person. So it just, or it brings out a more extreme version of who you are as a person. So if you know, are already a charitable person, like having much more money will make you extremely charitable. If you're a miserly, unhappy person, it's gonna just cause you like more problems, and you're gonna like try to hoard as much as you can or whatever, you know. So it's, you know, if you're a party animal socialite, having all that money is going to amplify that, because basically like what money does is amplify your power and influence in the world, and then also relieve you a lot of the consequences that might be associated with like things you do, you know.
That's true.
Yeah. And so, because if you go out and blow your money on drinking or whatever, you might not eat the next day. But if you're, you know, so rich that you don't have to worry about money, it's like you could just party for a year straight and never worry about, you know, the basics of life that might otherwise impact you and steer you back to a more normal course, you know.
Yeah, that's true. If I had a ton of money, I would probably have like a whole room that was just dedicated to books and my own personal library, you know, because that's like I love books. I read them all the time. I would just buy tons of books, but it would probably be bad because I would buy books and then probably not even read them because I'd like have too many of them. And it just become almost this like trophy thing, like check out my book room, my library. Let us retire to the study.
Convene. Yes. Well, and that's interesting too, because that's almost like the cost thing, you know. It's like it sounds like you're more inclined to read the book because it was like of a personal cost to you. Like, you know, you noticed the cost, and so you're invested in it because you paid a price for it, you know.
Yeah, like currently I don't really buy a lot of books. I just get them from the library. So it's like, okay, I have 3 weeks to read this book and then I have to return it. So it makes it have this deadline. Yeah, it's time, it's urgent. You know, if I don't read it all the way through, I have to return it, and then maybe somebody else checks it out and then I've missed it and I have to wait like a couple months, or
they don't do the no late fee thing there, or
I think they do actually. I think that technically you can return it late, and then you've got a certain amount of time where like they'll say that after like a month of late, you just own the book, but then you have to like buy them a new book, or you have to pay however much the book was. Because it used to be that it was like, if it's a day late, you owe us 10 cents. And I think they just, I think it was like nobody cared.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, the library up here, you can take things out until someone checks them or reserves them, basically.
Oh, that might be it. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So
anyway, when I talk about
way awesome.
Yeah, when I talk about libraries, I'm really talking about digital libraries. You know, Hoopla and Libby and things like that. And those still go on like a 3-week rule, basically.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah. I like that question of like, what would you do if money wasn't a concern or something, you know? Because it might change you if you didn't have costs associated with things. You know, would you let your health go?
Yeah, you know, if I had tons of money, would I use that money to just buy more restaurants and alcohol and sugar and fancy desserts, and I don't care about my health as much? You know, like right now,
I can afford health insurance, so
right, like my wife and I
need to stay healthy.
We even talk about it like, oh, well, fortunately, we don't have a lot of health expenses because we stay really healthy and we like work on that, you know, like we spend the time and the free labor and the knowledge taking care of our health so that we don't spend more money on those kinds of issues. So it's like, if I had more money, would I be like, who cares if I get another cavity? I'm just going to not brush my teeth anymore. I can replace them, pay money, whatever.
Yeah. It's just money. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it might like relieve you of some of the responsibility of like certain things that are inherently good for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, would you still like work and stuff, or would you do more like, like creative stuff or something? I don't know.
Yeah, that's another interesting thought. If you have lots of money, will you mismanage your time? You know,
Hmm.
that's a, you know, I feel like for me, it's really good for me to have a job. You
Hmm.
know, like I need to have a job because I need the money. And I feel like if I didn't need the money, I would still need a job because it just makes me productive, gets me out of the house, gets me physically moving, mentally thinking. You know,
Hmm.
I feel like a job is a good thing. It gives you like more purpose in life.
Yeah.
And when you don't have it, I just feel like it's so easy to waste time. What am I doing with my life? Why am I here? The
Yeah.
wall is still the same color. Okay, what am I going to do today?
My
I feel like you
mansion's
just
looking a little
lose.
gray today.
My mansion's looking gray. It's too big. Why do I have a big mansion? I don't know. I think that when you have a job, it helps you to stay focused and disciplined.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's too many ways that you'll lose that discipline, become lazy, and then the laziness will like hurt you in the long run.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes even the interesting thing is like you could be like, well, if I was rich, I'd still have a job, and like, fair enough, you might, but how many times do you, like with your current job, it's like not want to go, but you just have to because of money, and it's like then that's what gets you out of a cycle of or gets you in a good cycle again. It's like, whereas if you were rich and you're like, well, I don't feel like working today, you wouldn't really have any like excuse to like, or any like real reason to just do it if you didn't feel like it.
Yeah, that's true. I think an ideal job situation would either be like investing in different companies or businesses because you got money to invest.
Hmm.
Working with nonprofit organizations. If you don't need to make money anymore, go volunteer and help people with something,
Yeah.
Or what was the third thing I was going to say? Or there was something else I was going to say, but I can't remember what it was.
Or sit
Or
around like
work
a
doing
slob.
something else. Or uh, I can't remember. Investing in different companies, volunteering, nonprofit organizations.
You could do
Oh yeah, or
like,
if it's just something you really love to do, right? Like
yeah,
if you were an artist and you were making your own art, or if you just really enjoyed the work, then it assumably would be easy to show up, for that
yeah,
job. Yeah.
yeah. Some like being intrinsically motivated.
Yeah.
Well, and then also, I mean, what's interesting too is there's things that like money can't buy. Uh, like a functioning ego. And so it's like for that, you might look at some super rich, powerful person, but they're still lacking in, you know, like feeling okay about themselves, and so they're trying to achieve that through money and power and status. And so it's like even then you could be still lacking. So the job's kind of like a means to an end, or like making more money is a means to an end, even at that point, or more connections or more power. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's another interesting thing is it's like when is it enough? You know, when is
yeah,
it like I made $1 million and or I made, I mean, that's not really enough in today's economy because that basically just buys you a house, but you still have to pay for your life for the rest of your life. You made, you
yeah,
know,
and your property
uh,
taxes.
you made $1 billion, let's say, and
Yeah,
it's like, okay, that's going to pay for you and your family for the rest of your lives. So is that enough? Do you just not work and there's your
yeah,
money? Good for you. Or
yeah.
is it like I made $1 billion? Let's see if I can make two, you know?
It's like a game almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'd be someone that's like, I'm pretty self motivated, so I think for me it would be something that was like I would just keep doing whatever I like doing, because that's pretty much what I try to do anyway now. I mean, like even in my work, I try to do stuff that's varied and interesting, and to me on a personal level. And so, like, I don't think a whole lot would change, except maybe just like say no to a few more things. But yeah,
Have you heard of that? I think it's called like the happiest or the happiness window or something with money, where it's like if you have too much money,
mm,
you actually become less happy.
yeah,
And it's like I want to say it's if a person has under $20,000 a year, then they're unhappy because they're too poor. But
I
if they
think
have
it's like raised to
over,
like 80,000 now.
well, no, it's if you have less than like 20 or 30, you're unhappy. But then if you have more than I think it's like 70 or 80,000, then too much money can also cause unhappiness because you have to like manage the money and
I'm
people
pretty
want to
sure it's under
steal
like
it.
60,000's unhappy.
You think so? You think it's
Yeah.
shifted? Yeah.
Well, because I think it's like what the idea was like all your basic needs are met and you're like able to live comfortably and like
It also depends if you're married and have kids and
yeah,
what part of the country you live in.
yeah. I know 20,000's not a lot.
Yeah, if you had 20,000 and you had 3 kids and you lived in New York City, I think you'd be very unhappy.
Yeah, I've been watching all these videos of people's apartment tours in New York, and it's like 800 square foot, no room apartment that's like 2,500 a month.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's like oof.
Yeah.
So with your 20 grand, you can get about was that 5 months? No, 8 months. I don't know. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do that math. It's too basic. Uh, but yeah, it's you're getting less than a year for 20 grand, which is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
even
pretty insane.
even here to pay like 1,200 for something, after rent's done for the year, you're paid about 14 grand in rent alone, which leaves you 6,000 to eat rice for the rest of the year.
Not even rice, man. You're just licking the dew off of leaves in the backyard in the morning.
Eating the roadkill.
You're
road.
eating. Yeah, fortunately, roadkill is pretty plentiful up here, so you might be able to do well with that. But
venison and rice.
Oh man, gosh.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to touch on was just kind of like it's interesting how like money is decided upon. Like that's always fascinated me. How people like, especially like the dollar. It's only the dollar because everyone accepts it's got some value, right? And I mean, I guess at some point it was backed by gold, and people thought that had value too. But like, how do you think? Or I feel like I'm way out of my depth here on this economic topic, but it's like if you were to make a currency, what would you use?
Oh yeah, I know. Well, it's interesting, yeah, because it's like with currencies, or really just anything, it's all just sort of like culturally agreed upon value systems.
Yeah,
I know. So yeah, it's like if I couldn't use like a piece of paper for a currency, what else
for me,
would I
like
use?
I would use something like time. I don't know, like something. I don't know.
Oh,
I would use
like
something a
that.
little more abstract.
Wasn't there a movie based off of that? Wasn't there a movie?
Actually, there is.
Yeah, it was In Time, I think, or
with Justin Timberlake.
Right. That's right.
Yeah,
that was actually pretty good.
It was.
Time was the money.
Yeah.
They'd like exchange it through their arms and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it was like the wealthier you were, the more time you had.
Yeah. And people could like store up time and like life and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would just use some sort of like, because what's weird is, like things when you look at money, like the fact that people can make different amounts of money for equal amounts of time is kind of strange, right? Like just the fact that two people could do different things and one person makes like way more, even though they spent the exact same amount of time, is like really fascinating to me. Whereas like why that's even the case, whereas like if you were just measuring time, you should just like, obviously some stuff takes more investment. And so that's where the idea that like, your time is worth more. But
all right, here's my currency idea for you.
Nice.
What if currency was used out of blood? Kind of like you just have people killing each other and sucking their blood out, But it's kind of like Dune. Because remember how Dune, they always wanted the water, and they wanted the water out of people's bodies because water was so valuable.
Blood bank in their house.
It's like what if it was? Because then it's like you could draw your own blood. It's like you're basically making money. Your bones, your bone marrow makes red blood cells, and you'll make your own money.
Yeah.
And so it's like if you stay healthy,
naturally grow the economy over time.
Yeah, you just naturally. It's like over a while, you got your refrigerator with your own little blood bank. You put into it. You draw some blood out every like couple months, and here's a new pint of blood.
Making a withdrawal.
But then it's dangerous because then people kill you and they take your blood, and they'll just. Then it's like kind of a weird sort of dystopian future crime scene going on.
Mad Max-ish.
You know, it's you like cut your finger and blood drops on the ground, and it's like, oh, I'm losing money. Like, somebody wipes it up real quick. I got $5.
Yeah. Well, that is kind of an interesting idea to have like a money that you like instead
that
of
you
having
grow on your body.
Well, that too. Yeah.
Like your hair or something. Anyway, sorry, what were we going to say?
If you're doing locks for love or whatever. It's interesting instead of like having, you know, because it's like you have a centralized agency right now making money and adding, you know, to the economy probably too fast. Definitely too fast. But what would be interesting is if everyone like had something that they would, you know, like instead of having a centralized system, have like a decentralized system where everyone adds to the economy, you know, the overall economy and the overall total wealth just on their own terms.
That is interesting. Yeah. Because then it's all, you know, it's all just based on the individual person on how much they're making of their own money. You know, every single person is making money. They're generating more currency into the market. Yeah. So yeah, that's an interesting thought. Yeah.
It would just be like a slow inflation, which I guess is probably the best kind, but yeah. And then I guess with the blood thing, like everyone would be kind of limited to a certain amount, but it'd be like, I guess it'd be similar to if everyone became like a gold prospector or something, and then you're just adding more, you know, you're adding more gold into the economy. So I guess to some extent, maybe people, how does that work? I'm going to blow my own mind. I don't know.
Yeah. It's like, what would happen to the economy if we suddenly dug a hole into Nevada and you just unearthed like a gigantic mine of gold? And it was so much gold that it was like, oh, gold's not even rare anymore. Like gold's just
the whole state of Nevada was a gold
day.
Nugget all along.
Yeah, it was like, oh, we could just turn gold into that cake material that you put on food and just eat it. You know, it's like whatever. You ever seen those like cake gold material? Flakes? Yeah, you've never seen that? Like, well, I've just been watching too much of the Great British Baking Show. But anyway, there's like a gold leaf thing that you could like put into food and eat it. You know, it's anyway, just to say it's like so cheap you could just throw away gold. If we got to that point, then it's like, what would happen to our currency and economy? Like, if it's not dependent on gold standard anymore, then I guess just nothing. I don't know. It'd be weird.
Well, it isn't right now. So
yeah,
it's all just perceived value and how much stuff is tied up into the economy. But
yeah.
Well, and like the thing too, I think with what I was trying to say earlier, I guess, or I think when you're, because people are always like, basically, you know, with like oil, or for instance, you're like pulling money out of the ground essentially, so you're adding to the economy that way. But I think what the inflation in the dollar is for is like they're trying to match the economy, I believe. Don't quote me on this, but like by printing more money, you're like covering the assets that you're like you're producing, I guess.
Oh, that's interesting.
So you're like, you add more dollars as more wealth is generated or more resources are generated, I believe is what the correlation is. So it'd be like that way, if you're using blood, but that way material possessions, like, I guess, don't go down, it would stay similar in value too much. I don't know. Yeah, I think they're try to stay similar, I guess.
Yeah,
to match that.
That's interesting.
So, there's your deep dive into economics by two people that don't know economics, or I'll just speak for myself.
Yeah, I don't know. You know economics probably better than me. I don't think I know it that well. Yeah, gosh. Anyway, people.
If you say enough stuff, something will be right.
Yeah. I hope people are inspired by, I don't know, how much money they make, their blood, their wallets, whatever.
Yeah, there's a bunch out there. Go get some, people.
Yeah, go find some. Go make it. Yeah, go get a job. Yeah. Don't be lazy.
Yeah. And then when you find that big golden nugget, make a map to it.
That's right.
Yep. Pass it on our way.
Oh, yeah. All right, cool. Money and maps. That's what's inspiring today. Enjoy it.
Till next week.
Yep, later.
See ya.